And it's connecting now, so we'll get started. I'll tell you when you can call the meeting to order. Go ahead, Chair Total.
Can we call the meeting to order and I guess do a roll call?
Nice. Meeting called to order at exactly 6 p.m. Commissioner Doss.
Yes.
Commissioner Evans. Here. Vice Chair Roger. Here. And Chair Total.
Here.
All commissioners are present. We have a quorum.
So are there any people participating on the night?
No.
No, okay. Then I guess we can start with approval of minutes. Everyone had a chance to look at the minutes that were attached. Any questions or concerns about meeting minutes? You want to hear a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve the May 9th, 2024 minutes.
Second.
Seconded. For the record, that's Vice Chair Rajaram motioning to approve the minutes from May 9th as written, and or Commissioner Evans seconding.
Can we have a roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Doss. Commissioner Evans.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rajaram.
Yes.
And Chair Tobin.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Are any oral communications scheduled for today?
Yeah, just for the moment, this portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter within the jurisdiction of the commission and not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and in most cases, state law will prohibit the commission from making any decisions with respect to a matter not on the agenda. There do not appear to be any oral comments today.
Great, let's move on to written communication. First, old business item.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
There were no written communications received by the deadline today.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I misinterpreted that. Okay, let's move to old business. First item 2 is the public safety forum.
Great. I'm going to stop share really quick, just so we can have the screen. But as you all know, first and foremost, I appreciate the patience of the commission while I was out over the summer. Thank you for joining us back again here in September. It's been a minute since we've met. But our October Public Safety Forum is still on schedule, as we've discussed a slight change in the structure and formatting of the Public Safety Forum. We will continue with that format. We are still scheduled for October 17th. And in your packet today, or on the agenda today, you can see the save the date. And I'll put it up here on the screen. Save the date for the Public Safety Forum 2024 on Thursday, October 17th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Community Hall. We are generously partnering with of course, our public safety partners, Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office and Santa Clara County Fire Department. And this year will be a return to a true public safety focused forum. In the past, we've done a lot of presentations and informational items on ancillary support tools or systems or organizations. This year, we're going to focus directly on our public safety agencies. So the second item in your packet is a program plan, an overview, where we will discuss, where it's discussed here the exact format and structure of the meeting. Chair Toto, you'll notice in that packet that you'll be introduced here. And then who will then introduce the fire chief, Suwana Herdgal. Sorry. And then followed quickly by the fire chief, deputy fire chief, Hector Estrada, and then Captain Valenzuela for a brief overview of what our systems do, how our public safety agencies operate, and then we'll sit to a facilitated discussion between the three of us. Okay. We will have closing remarks again by the chair, and I will be adding in a public comment period because it is a special meeting of the Public Safety Commission, so we'll have to have a public comment period. All right.
Are we inviting the block leaders?
Of course, this will get a wide distribution. In fact, this save the date item went out today in the items of interest newsletter. So if you're registered to receive those, you'll see this public safety forum, save the date in that.
And part of the previous forums was a safety fair as part of that, so we're thinking of breaking that out.
Yes, exactly. We're really going to focus in on the actual engagement with our public safety agencies, including your city, but the booths and the fair atmosphere is not going to be a part of it this year. We'll look to schedule that in the future, thanks to Saratoga's connection with a local scouting troop here.
Yep.
We'll look to partner with a potential Eagle Scout to help organize a public safety fair in springtime.
Totally dedicated to safety, and we're trying to engage a variety of community nonprofits.
Any questions?
Yeah, I guess, regarding that save the date flyer, like, I guess in terms of outreach or the channels of distribution, is there anything like really focused on the side of what's already been?
Individually as a
Yeah.
commissioner?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'd love for you all to amplify this message.
Can I close it?
Yeah. We'll love for you to amplify this message as much as possible through your own channels, your own distributions to your family, your friends, your neighbors. If you know of a different way other than our city channels, and of course, our partner agencies will likely share similar messaging about the event. But if you have opportunities to get it out there, we're really looking for a widest distribution as possible for the public safety forum.
One thing I found out that because of the Office of Emergency Management, when we send alerts, they encourage us to help pass it along, to use our Facebook or Instagram and other feeds that we use. We also use Nextdoor.
Mhm.
So if you pass the information along, pass the flyer, you'll get a wide dispersal of information. Those are pretty effective.
Okay.
So, do we have a motion to receive a report?
Since we do have public in the room,
Mhm.
we'd like to open it for comment on this item, which is an update on the public safety forum. We should do that.
Okay,
So we don't have any speaker cards with me, but we're a small group. If you'd like to comment on the public safety forum.
That's how great you are. Thank you.
Great. So then we'll close public comment.
do I hear a motion to receive the report on the public safety forum?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, please, let's have a vote to,
For the record, that's Commissioner Das motioning to receive the updated report on the public safety forum 2024, and Commissioner Evans seconding. For roll call vote, Commissioner Das. Commissioner Evans.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rajma. Yes. And Chair Toder.
yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, item 3, city-owned automated license plate reader.
So can I ask a question before we go to the motion 3? The written communication last meeting when it was cancelled, any written communication came that time, was it considered for this meeting or nothing last meeting?
I'm sorry, I don't.
So last meeting was cancelled, right?
Yes.
So did we get any written communication that time?
No, that process doesn't apply in this case for written communications for the meeting. There wasn't a meeting held. So, in the terms of
It does not carry forward to the next meeting.
in a public notice meeting, it's during the time of the public notice, time between the notice and the actual meeting time is when the written communications are addressed here in the room. You receive all written communications directly, through the email distribution. So anything that was received to the Public Safety Commission went directly to you.
Thank you.
And there was none. Right,
Our last meeting was none.
For the last 3 months, there may have been emails to the Public Safety Commission. I did not record those for presentation here.
Okay. All right.
Okay, let's continue and discuss the city-owned ALPR program.
Yeah, and just for, this is a little bit new, for this commission. We don't have a lot of recommended actions coming to this commission. There are not a lot of normally public updates. So I just wanted to go over that the recommended actions are, number one, to recommend the proposed city of Cupertino ALPR policy for adoption by city council. Recommend that the city council consider authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a memorandum of understanding between the county of Santa Clara and the city of Cupertino regarding the use of ALPR. And then three, recommend the city council consider authorizing the city manager to negotiate and approve an agreement with Flock Safety to lease ALPR cameras not to exceed $185,000 for 3 years with the option for 2 additional years and a maximum total compensation of $300,000 approximate, which is approximately $60,000. And so I will present a presentation for you. All right. So tonight we're going to go over, once again, the recommended action, some background on the project, the proposed policy itself, the draft MOU with the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office, the recommendation to execute an agreement with Flock Safety, proposed locations for ALPR cameras, our community outreach efforts, and finally our fiscal impacts. Once again, here are the recommended actions that will be presented to council. And first, what is ALPR technology? These are devices that use a camera, a physical device, and software to scan for alphanumeric characters on a vehicle license plate. The cameras will be fixed on light poles or fixed infrastructure around the city. They're used for law enforcement applications only. They compare a plate number against a known list or stolen vehicles or missing persons or part of an active investigation. The systems will alert law enforcement for the location of those matching plates. And as I noted earlier, they're used for these active investigations. So if there is a current investigation going on, we can use it to locate a vehicle in our city or in adjacent cities. The data collected by the ALPR systems are high resolution images, the exact date and time of those vehicles, the precise location where those images were taken, specific details such as the make and model of the color of the vehicle, and then it sends the notifications and alerts for the vehicles of interest. The data is only accessible by authorized personnel within the sheriff's office. They're used for official investigations only, and including potential criminal activities and locating missing persons. It's all within compliance with state and local laws and policies that we'll go over in just a second to protect privacy and civil liberties. So in short, ALPR is a system that gathers objective evidence about vehicles and not people. It alerts police and our law enforcement agency, the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office, of wanted or missing vehicles. They're used to solve crime and they adhere to all state laws. What it's not, this ALPR system is not facial recognition. We don't collect any biometrics. We don't use it for tracking speed, cell phone use, seatbelt wearing, or parking violations. This system.
One confusion at the commissioners meeting with the mayor was some people interpreted that being real-time video system where we can look at videos. And I was telling them it's not, it's just to capture license plate scans.
And that's the exact last bullet there. This is not a live camera.
Yeah.
The sheriff's office can't look through it and see how many people are driving through a certain intersection. And certainly nor can the city. So a little bit more background on the program and why we're working towards this. In fiscal year 2022, 2023, the city council applied this, added a work program item for ALPR systems. We were to research systems, identify outreach strategies used by other jurisdictions, assess locations, estimate costs, and in partnership with the sheriff, install the ALPR devices. And in subsequent years since then, both in FY 23-24, FY 24-25, the directive from City Council through the City Work Program was to deploy city-owned license plate readers and implement policies to allow neighborhood-owned ones. So what did we do? We examined the ALPR standards and regulations, including state law, and successful practices from other jurisdictions. We collaborated with the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office, who have neighboring jurisdictions, our city partners in Saratoga and Los Altos Hills that have already implemented ALPR systems. And with the advice of the Sheriff's Office, we proposed locations that we'll go over later in the presentation. During our preliminary assessment and program evaluation, we presented here at the Public Safety Commission in 2023, also at the TIC Commission in 2023. We received the input from the community and the commission members directly and applied that to our policies here in the city. We formulated our own ALPR usage policy and the MOU with the Sheriff's Office by evaluating policies from the other cities, including very strict protocols for data collection, storage, and sharing. And of course, using the best practices from our neighboring cities, the supervision and periodic audits of the system access logs. Continuing more recently, there was some policy adjustments by the county in January 2024. We delayed a little bit of our policy development, our continuation of the policy development to evaluate those changes to make sure they met with our intended mandate. These changes, in short, were to permit data exchanges across policing agencies. We still continue to assess additional policies as more cities brought on ALPR systems around the county, including Palo Alto, Los Altos Hills, of course, Saratoga, and Los Gatos. And we gathered perspectives from internally, both at the county level and at the city level. We revised our policies and are now here presenting for at the Public Safety Commission for final recommendation, and we will present to City Council for final adoption. So what does our policy actually say? Our policy explicitly authorizes very specific uses of the ALPR system. And generally speaking, it's law enforcement and public safety. Our data collection is limited to the digital images of vehicle license plates and their associated vehicle information. Our policy limits access to authorized personnel at the Sheriff's Office who have received appropriate training and are aware of both the county policy and will be aware of our approved city policy. We limit third-party data sharing by once again, we evaluated policies from other cities. And then for public access, we prohibit through our policy sharing, selling, sharing, or transferring data except as required by law or court order. And then finally, our ALPR policy mandates that all personnel who receive, who use and access the ALPR system receive proper training and copies of these policies. The monitoring of the policy, as I mentioned, we're limited to authorized personnel. There's an annual evaluation process, an annual report, and then public information. What you see here on the screen is an example of their transparency portal provided free by by a part of the service that we're paying for through the vendor. What's detected, what uses, and then how many times it's been accessed, and success stories at the bottom. As a part of the policy, we'll have to have an MOU with the Sheriff's Office supplementary to our current general law enforcement agreement. We'll have an MOU for their use of our ALPR system. It incorporates both the city and county's policies, sets standards for and procedures for lawful and ethical use of the system, and requires an update as needed to reflect best practices and the current legal requirements as they may change. Now, in order to operate this system, we'll have to have an agreement with a vendor. And we're recommending, coming to you for a recommendation of approving or a recommendation of considering authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement with Flock Safety. All nearby cities use the same vendor platform. In particular, we looked at Los Altos Hills informal solicitation for ALPR systems in 2021, and Flock Safety was selected as the best value for the city. Now, proposed locations based upon this initial deployment and the available budget assigned through the city work program and the fiscal year budget process, we're recommending 15 locations. These locations are identified for primary access points into the city, major thoroughfares, off ramps from freeways, and perimeter access points into the city from our neighboring jurisdictions. Our community outreach process, once again, we presented to the Public Safety Commission in 2023. The TIC Commission in 2023. We covered our purpose, benefits, costs, and privacy implications. We solicited the feedback from those commissioners and the public in attendance. And we're here returning to the commission. And hopefully we're going to vote, excuse me for the typo, vote unanimously for this the approval of it or recommendation for this. And we reviewed this draft policy and proposed location of the sheriff's office and the county. Now, the cost breakdown, our first year total will be as quoted to us as a $62,250. That includes initial implementation and installation costs. The annual recurring cost with the 15 locations would be $59,000. On a cost per camera per year is $3,000. And for the first 3 years, that'll be approximately $180,250. And with an option for 2 years, be $118,000 and a maximum contract of $298,250. And once again, our recommendation is for you to recommend to council to adopt a resolution establishing the Cupertino ALPR policy. Recommend council consider authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a memorandum of understanding with the County of Santa Clara regarding the use of ALPRs. And again, recommend the council consider authorizing the city manager to negotiate and approve an agreement with Flock Safety for the lease of the ALPR systems. Just want to take any questions.
How is the data from the license plate? Is it into a database where it's image, or is some OCR or clerical person transmitting that graphical image into alphanumeric characters?
So I'll defer to our sheriff's office who actually uses the system.
So the camera takes a picture of the license plate number, and it'll query that number into a couple of different law enforcement databases. One is SVS, which is our stolen vehicle system, which includes stolen vehicles, stolen license plates, stolen trailers, stolen boats, a bunch of different stuff. And then it also has MUPS, which is our missing persons database. That's people who go missing and driving away with a car via the car information. Additionally, also checks a law enforcement created database of what we call wanted vehicles or vehicles of interest. So hypothetical, if Santa Clara PD Police Department is working a couple residential burglaries that occurred really fast, but they have a license plate, they can enter that license plate number in. We are all alerted if that license plate comes into our jurisdiction, and we'll be notified. Correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Jones, but I think that hot list is only 48 hours. Is that correct? Something like that?
72 hours.
72 hours. So the hot list doesn't last forever. Now, it transmits that number digitally to our dispatcher and our police and all our deputies that are looking to read. There are a few times where that's a plate misread. So like a lot of times the 7, the E's will look like F's. Then a deputy can go into the system, look at the actual image, and then can correct it and say, that's a plate misread. We're not going to that, or that's a good plate, we're gonna go to that vehicle, basically. And that's how, so we don't actually get the image, it transfers into a number. And we do have about a little less than a third, depending on the number of reads that are plate misreads.
Those sounds like an optical character recognition.
Yes.
That looks super. And we just did a budget approval, so does what we're talking about here factored already into the budget that was just approved?
You mean for the fiscal year 24-25?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had it approved in the original budget and carried that money over. as
Just
project
as a point of clarification, because that was an interesting document. Okay. You guys have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What kind of crime we are targeting here? Is the stolen vehicle and missing person or anything else?
So it's targeting those two specific crimes, and the reason why stolen vehicles is because often when crooks are gonna rob a bank, commit a bunch of residential burglaries or any other crime, they usually tend to steal a vehicle. So that's why it targets those specific vehicles. Now, if a residential burglary occurs, we can also, and we have a good time frame. Our detectives can access that information to look for a suspect vehicle. It's not the dead giveaway. It's not going to be an end all to solve the crime, but it's a tool to maybe narrow down a suspect or suspects if they have that. So we're also including several different kinds of crime, shoplifting, burglary, robberies, anything you can think of, vandalisms. If we have a time frame when it occurred, detectives can actually access that information to review any license plates in the area.
So that's awesome. Basically, it's not just a reported stolen vehicle. Because if somebody had a shoplifting and somebody says that, oh, I saw a green SUV, this time it went out of this target parking lot. So you can identify that or at least narrow it down.
Correct.
That kind of crime as well.
Correct. And again, it's not an end all, solve all, because
Yeah.
sometimes that happens and we look at the license plate
Yeah.
and it's a vehicle that wasn't reported stolen, but now is reported stolen. So
Right.
that happens every now and then, but it is an additional tool for us to investigate crimes that had occurred.
So I assume that in city of Cupertino, the number of stolen vehicle or missing person is not that high, but the other crime potentially is more. I mean, do you have the statistics right now that how many
autos,
how many auto like theft, like auto
we've had 24 this year so far, 24 vehicles stolen,
in city of Cupertino?
the city of Cupertino. Yes.
And
But
missing person?
missing persons, I don't have that statistic with me, but I can definitely bring it up to you if you need to. We have located missing persons, several missing persons with that. Not necessarily from our jurisdiction, but like from Palo Alto. We had a missing person that went missing from Palo Alto. The person had, I think, dementia and kind of drove into Los Altos Hills, so we were notified that there was a missing person there. We went, stopped the car and were able to return that person home. That's just an example. We have located some missing people with that.
No, this is definitely good. So one thing I was thinking that let's say something happens in Los Altos and the missing person report, so we identify here. So it's basically a county-wide, initiative essentially. So are you going to get any budget or funding from county or the city need to bear the whole thing?
The city would need to bear that cost based upon our current law enforcement agreement.
We do have, you get your Amber Alerts or Silver Alerts on your phone that do come up. This is actually a little bit better because it pinpoints exactly where that vehicle is at for us, so we can send law enforcement directly to that area.
And the data can be shared with just the city of Saratoga if who is not paying, or for example, San Jose is not part of the system, but San Jose Police Department can also use the data, right?
Correct. And we get the San Jose State as well too.
Right, that's the policy change that occurred at the county level in January 2024 to allow that data sharing. Sherry?
There was a request to,
Yeah, sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say you may consider opening up this item to public comment, considering we actually have public in the room. So I have a request to speak card from Kitty Moore.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the report. I'm sorry I can't stay. I'm going to be going over to another meeting. But I was wondering about the neighborhood camera policy, and I imagine we're going to get into some discussion about that before it goes to council. So my concern there was how are they going to fund it and how can it be done equitably throughout the city? And I can't give you the answer, but I'm just going to throw that out there. Thank you.
So it's a little unusual for us because we don't normally have public comment, but you can ask us to address those comments or those questions. We can do that.
Okay, great.
But I mean, just in short, our policy does explicitly allow for neighborhood owned devices. We have the data sharing allowance for privately owned cameras in our community.
So have we explored that, like, the data sharing, like, let's say right now, like every neighborhood has camera, like every house potentially has some camera. So how that data can be used, because these days the beam and all these things are cloud storage. And if somebody authorizes that, incentivizes, because everyone gets benefit from the safety, right? How those data can be accessed and used for the law enforcement?
Can I, so I'll just give an example of the city of Saratoga. The city of Saratoga only owns, I believe, 7 cameras, 7 cameras, the city of Saratoga. However, there are, I believe, over 40 cameras within the city. Most of them are privately funded through HOAs or they're funded through some lamplighting district acts. They're just purchasing the cameras through Flock. The cameras go through the Saratoga city system. The homeowner, the people who buy them, do not have access to the data. They cannot look at anything. They can't access any information on their cameras. Businesses can purchase cameras. They themselves cannot. They have to agree that if they're going to notify law enforcement, it has to go through the city system. So it has to go through the Cupertino, Saratoga, or Los Altos Hills directly to come to us.
Is this something that should be in a separate topic though, since we're talking ALR? And not this network of personal and public cameras?
I think this fits within the
You think
purview
it's
of the
fine?
side. This is all ALPR
Yeah.
allowing the neighborhood owned devices, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess one question I had was like in the, I think it was the draft resolution and even in this presentation, we talk about how like the only authorized users are the law enforcement and public safety use case, which makes total sense. And I guess the captured images and everything are stored on Flock's end, like we don't store that locally. So I'm curious, like, is it part of their policy that none of their employees and none of their systems have access to the data that's collected on our behalf, basically?
That is correct. They don't have any access to the data. Users create accounts and we have all law enforcement accounts. We do have a managed analyst who takes all the data out, raw numbers, for number of hits, misreads and stuff like that, because they have to compile the data monthly for an annual report to the board of supervisors. But only authorized account users under that umbrella for the city can access that information.
How are these types of crimes solved today? Like how much benefit would we get from this versus whatever techniques you have to use now?
We have several different ways of solving crime. It's for detectives, it's a little bit easier for us if we can narrow down the window. We have a lot of methods of getting search warrants through different methods of technology that we use. However, this kind of narrows it down a little bit for us to kind of identify not only a possible suspect, but so that, once you have a vehicle, it's not the solve of the crime, but you can look for the registered owner or somebody on probation or parole that owns that vehicle, somebody had previous crime. So it's just a beginning tool to try to figure something out. The way we currently solve a residential burglary is through fingerprints, DNA. If they cut their finger and they leak blood, we have to run that through the lab. That can be very time consuming and costly. Fingerprints, we do have our own fingerprint, identification unit in the sheriff's office. So deputies collect fingerprints, we can put the person there. But this kind of speeds it up a little bit, narrows it down, and also links. So if we have series of burglaries in different places, we can run that license plate. If it appears in all that area, we're kind of narrowing down the suspect. We may have left a fingerprint in one house, but not the other ones. And so we kind of can solve a little bit more crimes. I did last time we were here, I think I showed a really great stop by one of our Saratoga deputies where we had almost a semi-automatic, almost AK-47 style, machine gun, several handguns loaded, fully loaded. The guy was wearing a bulletproof vest. He had wants from Canada for different bank robberies, and he just happened to get off on Saratoga Avenue. And we were alerted to the car was stolen, and he was on his way to commit a serious bank robbery that we stopped. So, but I would say also just locating a missing person, that's invaluable right there, and just that aspect of it.
So it's potentially significant improvement, then, not a marginal improvement over the current
We have
process, you said?
not only have we solved crimes, but we also prevented, I think, a lot of crime. It's hard to gauge of what because a vehicle entering that's stolen in your town could just be passing through and go to some other town, but if we can stop that person right there, it might prevent a burglary, a grand theft, or some other kind of crime.
It sounds like there's an automated function in the tool where if you have a license plate of interest and it's flagged at one of the cameras, it would automatically tell you? Or
Yes, yes.
And so you don't have to refresh every 2 minutes.
Correct. No, and that's where he was talking about stays for 72 hours. So if Santa Clara is looking for a suspect, if Palo Alto is looking for somebody because they got a bunch of residential burglars with the same license plate, they'll enter that license plate number in. So as soon as that person comes into town, alerts us, we stop that vehicle.
Question for Tom. You mentioned that there was some feedback in March 2023. That was for my time as a commissioner. Was there any significant feedback from that meeting?
Yeah,
Or was that all?
no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, was that all addressed? Is there a big change to the proposal, or maybe just like, I don't really have the history for this one, so I'd be curious to know what the public's feeling was and.
Yeah, most of the questions that were received at those times, both the Public Safety Commission and the TIC Commission were actually misconception about the use of the capability of the
How it
system.
works.
Right.
Mhm.
And so we took extra steps to make it clear in both our policy and our MOU of what was allowed and what wasn't. Also what the capabilities of the system were.
Yeah.
That's why in the presentation, we were clear, or we provided examples of what it actually looks like, what is actually captured. And we made sure to emphasize that we are working on the emphasis of protecting our privacy and civil liberties of all of our residents. And limitations to access, to the way it's comparing, to a known list. So again, stolen vehicles or an active investigation, vehicles involved in an active investigation.
Mhm. How is the usage policy enforced? Is it like, is there some person who oversees the
Yeah,
request?
answer that question. So, we do take our policy very seriously, and any misuse is handled right away. We do report our misuse to the Board of Supervisors and a surveillance report. We did have staff that, for example, conducted searches without providing a police report number. That we required that from our staff, and I believe there was like 3 or 4 deputies that were looking for suspect vehicles, but they put like robbery or burglary, looking for vehicles, and they didn't write the case number, and we address that with corrective action. And we make sure, and we do let people know, this happens again, you're gonna cut off from the system, so.
What about sharing? You talked about sharing with nearby cities, counties, etc. What about like federal agencies? Do they have access to this data? Can someone come in and say, we're gonna look at all this and? you know,
Yeah, good question. So, at the advice of the Attorney General, we do not share with anybody outside the state of California. And for a number of reasons, we don't want, an example of that is if Idaho, for example, outlaws abortion and somebody travels to California, we don't want our license plate data to be used to prosecute a crime that does not necessarily fit our norms in California. So we don't share with anybody outside the state of California. We do have a federal partner in our NICRIC portion, but I don't believe that they themselves have actual access to our data.
And who is the custodian of this data?
The sheriff's office is the custodian of records for the data. Data purchased every 30 days from the system.
Oh, there's a 30 days history.
Yes.
To clarify, that's stored data in the Flock network is purged every 30 days.
Yes.
If there's an investigation, it will it will be retained
It will be
longer.
retained, yeah, if there's something, because that's what we have to use that provide that to the DA's office, the district attorney's office for prosecution.
So if they found that it's in fact part of this, a specific investigation, they'll download that data and keep it locally with the sheriff's office. They're the custodian of that record. And it's part of the investigation, not for necessarily for public release.
And that will be in sheriff's office, that data.
Sheriff's, the city of Cupertino will not download or maintain any data. We don't even have a user account of the system. In fact, our policies explicitly states we will not have a user access account.
One thing I saw when I was looking at the documents was one of the uses was for traffic, understanding traffic patterns, congestion, things like that. How does that tie into this? Because this sounds like it's intended to be used specifically for law enforcement, and you even have to have like a case number or an active investigation.
Yeah,
So how is this like anonymized data consumed?
it wouldn't be used for any of that information.
Oh.
It's not used for.
Okay, so that's no longer part of the.
It's for speeding tickets, for parking tickets. It's strictly.
Well, I mean, not for like, I just mean for like, oh, there's a lot of traffic in this area versus this area. I thought I saw that in the
Yes,
document.
that is in there as part of our policy to allow that, but it's completely anonymized data, so it wouldn't be the license plate. This would
It
be
would
the
just be the number of
capability of the
license
system,
plates
number of
over time.
vehicles going through an area as part of traffic congestion potentially, or maximizing our throughput. That's also in the event of a disaster, should there be stoppage in flow, we would have, that would provide us information about
But does Flock provide that as metadata?
the data.
So you don't have to access it? Okay.
Completely anonymized data.
I see.
Will not, again, the city will not access it. The sheriff's office has, frankly, to speak on your behalf, does not have need for traffic flow pattern data. But the availability of that and the system, way the system provides it, as long as it's anonymized, we will be able to use it.
Makes sense.
So, when you studied this, right, the other city data, how many years those cities are using this one, the system?
The flock system,
Yeah.
every city in this Bay Area, this South Bay area that has an ALPR system, stationary ALPR system uses flock.
Yeah, how many years they're using right now?
How many years?
Yeah.
Oh,
We went, Los Altos Hills was the first for the sheriff's office.
Yeah,
in
2021.
2021. But I knew before then, I knew Santa Clara Police Department was already using it.
2019.
Yeah, they were in 2019. So there's other agencies that have been using it longer than us.
And we have a measurable metric that the crime has reduced or certain kind of crime it helped, we measurement on that, how it helped.
It's sort of skewing the statistics a little bit because we're recovering more stolen vehicles. For example, I know the city of Morgan Hill, they're all of a sudden recovering a lot of stolen vehicles. So now it's making it look like crime is rampant. We have a lot of stolen vehicles that are recovered in that area. So even up for Saratoga, we've recovered several stolen vehicles. And in the way we track them, a recovered stolen vehicle and a reported stolen vehicle kind of match in the same area. So it makes it look like a little bit more like crime is up, but what we're doing is actually recovering more stolen vehicles or stolen license plates. But overall, there hasn't been any quantifying method, like statistics. I know it could tell you like Los Altos Hill, they experienced a surge in residential burglaries. And over the last year, we've had a significant, knock on wood, decline to residential burglaries in Los Altos Hills.
And this system helped, LPR system there, we do.
It's helped solve a lot of the crimes, and it's helped prevent it a couple because they'll let us know when a stolen vehicle got in there and we've gotten a pursuit with the vehicle in Los Altos. So we don't know. I'm pretty positive they were gonna be in there for committing a residential burglary, but the numbers went, I believe we ended with 60 something or 70 something, and we are a little bit under 17 right now, 17, 18 right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out a frame of note for your response to your question, that the example that the captain brought up about the wanted vehicle that was tagged by ALPR systems from a person that committed crimes in Canada, for example, that was tagged here. That's registered as an arrest in Saratoga, forgive me, not correcting, but in Saratoga, that's registered as an arrest. It's will be reported effectively as a crime statistic for reporting purposes. But that's not a crime that was committed here, that was an arrest here.
Right.
So will likely show some increase, but you also have difficulty proving the negative. So what that person didn't do as a result of being arrested prior to committing a crime here is hard to quantify. So you gotta keep in mind what this will mean on both ends of the data.
Yeah, understand. I mean, that make the decision harder, right? I mean, you spend money, you get something. So that's I understand that, but the challenge here. And
In my opinion, what would be a good metric of evaluating this system is how many accurate hits and how many resulting arrests would come out of it.
yeah,
Uh,
data is good enough, right?
Yeah, but we can also look to find quantifiable data should we or we being the sheriff's office determine that someone was intending to do something based upon the paraphernalia.
Based on the system, yeah, we
Yeah.
implemented this.
It's possible to do that. It takes a little bit more probably narrative to describe that rather than actual hard number data.
One thing is, if the bad people know we have this kind of system, that's gonna act like a deterrent. So how much do the bad folks know we have the system in place?
Yes, it's a really good point you bring up. I know the city of Menlo Park, when they installed their cameras, they did put signage all over the place too, that they were also APR cameras. However, I will also let you know that in Los Altos Hills, when we had that search, it's because criminals were finding a way around it. They would steal a license plate on a stolen car, and so that's where the hot list vehicles came in more important, because it may not necessarily make it into the stolen system yet, but a hot list vehicle will be right away instantaneous put into the system. And so that's where that's what we started data sharing. We wanted to get those numbers in that system right away, not wait till the records clerk got it and entered into the stolen vehicle system. So
Are other South Bay and Bay Area cities looking at the system to implement in their areas?
Yes, most South Bay cities have
Yeah.
them. I think one. In fact, I'm not aware of any city in the South Bay that does not have them or are intending to install them.
So that's another reason why. We should, because
Otherwise, they know.
it'd be interesting if you saw a map of the Bay Area cities and counties. I mean, the more that have it, the better coverage you have. Because then it's part of the network saying it's stolen vehicle here and it's coming from, Oakland or whatever. And then we're alerted to it.
Another question I have is this is a little bit, maybe different kind of question. So the traffic signal, all the lights that we have, who owns those? City or the?
Well, it depends upon the roadway, but generally speaking, in the city of Cupertino, we own and operate all streetlights.
And those data cannot be used for tracking or not possible?
Are you referring to the traffic cameras that are there?
Yeah.
No, those are not.
Yeah,
used for
lights,
crime.
so, yeah.
Not crime, not active, they don't have active notification or detection on those cameras for this purpose. It's a different technology. They do other major thoroughfares or streetlights will have some traffic flow analyses, but not a ALPR type device.
Red light violation, they take picture, right, and then send it, right, for the ticket.
Well, we don't have a red light violation camera.
We don't have
In Cupertino, but the sheriff's office does use them for traffic collision investigations and things like that.
yeah, we don't have, a couple of years ago, that law of photographs being taken to enforce infractions kind of thought some arguments and some discussions. So we got rid of all of those cameras a couple of years
So
ago.
we means only city of Cupertino or the Santa Clara County?
Most of the state of California, but there was a new law that just passed a couple of years ago that allowed certain municipalities to reinstall them again. I think Oakland, San Jose, and I forgot what other city. They got permission from the state to now do red light cameras and speed cameras again, but that it has to be a large municipality that can obtain those, but we don't have those here in Cupertino.
We have the handful of traffic cameras that we do have are mainly for traffic flow and patterns analysis, not for enforcement. They can be used if there's a direct collision that's captured by the camera, but.
And these are deactivated by the state law.
We just, several years ago, the law says that a police officer has to watch you commit the infraction in order to give you the citation. So taking a picture of somebody committing an infraction wouldn't be the thing. And so the only one that was allowed is obviously fast track, as you guys know. But the law's changed, like I said, the last year where they're allowing it again, but only certain municipalities are kind of doing it right now. And I know San Jose is one of them that is allowing for red lights and I think speeding cameras as well too.
How San Jose can allow it if the state law prevents?
There was an assembly bill that was proposed for certain, I think LA, Oakland, San Jose, a bunch of
Only
different.
for certain pockets.
Pockets, yes.
Wow. And this is another point, like, we are doing this thing, we spend money. After 3 years, another state law bill might come. That for whatever reason, discontinue this.
Well, I'll note that there was.
Yeah, because that was a beautiful thing, like all this traffic camera, you can take the picture of the vehicle with the number very clearly. I got ticket for that also, by the way. So it's very clear, right? So it is, and those are very effective system, right? And that we have the system in place as we are not using.
Well, we do not have that in place.
We don't have.
I want to be clear that we don't have a red light camera system in this city.
So we yank them out.
I'm not aware of us having them at all.
We used to have one many years, a speeding one, right towards Permanente cement plant, and we took that down several years ago.
I think we're getting off the topic.
Yes, we're getting beyond our topic.
It's gonna be a long night, so let's focus back on the ALR PR system. Any other questions about?
Yes, yeah, so there was like also one of the other documents that was attached was like I guess the quote from Flock Safety, and I noticed that in the count, there was like 7 of one item and 8 of another. Does that mean that the 15 that we're thinking are actually, it's not 15 of the same camera, like they have different capabilities?
Depends upon the size of the roadway.
Okay,
So Deanza Boulevard versus Foothill Expressway would be very different
Got it.
applications. Cool. Because you're looking across multiple lanes.
right.
Great. Any other questions, comments about the ALR?
And are you going to respond to Kitty Moore's question, the public comment?
We did at least a little bit. I can address it again. The policy explicitly allows neighborhood-owned devices. We do not have a mechanism in place to fund them by the city. The residents are able to purchase their own or band together as part of an HOA or another association group to contract with the vendor to install and procure their own devices. And those devices, data can be shared. That data can be shared with the sheriff's office.
Okay.
I should note, just to follow up, Captain brought it up, but Saratoga has a similar model, though they have a special lighting district that they apply a property tax to the properties that vote for it and approve it. They have 58 total cameras in their system, 7 of which are actually owned by the city.
So I think that our actions are to approve that there's 3 recommendations.
Yeah, sorry, Chairman, to the one more question. So the funding for these, we have approved funding for right now, or
We have 1-year funding of $60,000. We'll be able to fund the first year, and then through the ongoing fiscal year budget, we'll have to appropriate. This council will have to appropriate money.
And we are going to ask council for a multi-year authorization or 1-year authorization?
We will ask them to recommend to authorize the city manager to negotiate and approve the agreement with Flock, which will then necessitate the allocation of funding.
That's item 3 that we're voting on right now.
Understand, yeah. Okay.
Then is there a motion to recommend the proposed City of Cupertino ALR policy for adoption by the city council?
I'll note, you don't have to do them one by one.
Okay, we can do it all together. Thank you. If you look at, there's 3 recommendations, 1, 2, and 3. Is there a motion to recommend the ALPR program for the city.
Okay, motion to approve the three recommended actions for Cupertino's ALPR system policy.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. For the record, that's Vice Chair Rajaram, motioning to approve the recommended actions as written. And that's Commissioner Evans seconding the motion. In a roll call vote, Commissioner Dobbs. Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rajaram,
Yes.
and Chair Toda.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Right, let's now move on to new business. Subject is 2023 multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, all several hundred dollars.
All right, once again, you'll have me, so you, as always, you'll get very tired of me by the end of the night. I will share my screen. I have another presentation for you. Here we go. All right, once again, we're gonna go over the subject and recommended action, reasons for recommendation, the background, planning process, the whole community approach, public outreach and engagement process, the adoption process, the maintenance of it, sustainability impact, our fiscal impact, and forgive me, the CEQA Act. Our recommended action today is to recommend to the city council adopt the 2023 Santa Clara County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan, which includes volume 1, the base plan, and volume 2, the City of Cupertino Annex. For some background, the Stafford Act is what governs most disaster services in the country. Provides federal natural disaster assistance and aids states and local governments in helping residents. And the law was signed into law in 1988 and amended by the Disaster Relief Act in 1974. Disaster Relief Act is what established the hazard mitigation program. This sets the statutory authority and the basis for most federal disaster response, and specifically involves the Federal Emergency Management Agency. A presidential declaration triggers the financial and physical assistance that you hear about through FEMA. The Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 amended the Stafford Act and supports pre-disaster mitigation efforts. So these are funding that comes in and allows us to identify potential hazards and mitigate them ahead of time before an earthquake or a flood hits. The Disaster Mitigation Act focuses on the hazard identification and risk evaluation process, so we know what our hazard is and we know what risk it associates to. It established policy guidance for mitigation planning, guiding the state mitigation officers and local jurisdictions, and encourages the development of a hazard mitigation plan, or in our case, a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. And finally, having an approved hazard mitigation plan establishes our eligibility for mitigation funds, both pre and post disaster. I should note that it's not legally required. We don't have to have this, but if we want to be eligible for funding, we need it. So the last multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan was developed in 2016. The Santa Clara County, the fire department, and all the cities collaborated, plan tailored to our needs and our capabilities. We, the city, participated in that process and the city council adopted a resolution on June 5th, 2018. That adoption accepted volume 1 and volume 2, which included the City of Cupertino's annex, and enabled qualification for hazard mitigation grants. We were due for revision in 2022. It's generally speaking, a 5-year cycle. So it's called the 2016 multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan because that's the year it was planned in, but it was approved in 2018. And we have 5 years to revise it. we got an extension here in this county due to COVID-19 from FEMA. Now, our process, we formed a local planning team led by my office, the Office of Emergency Management. We integrated priorities from previously adopted plans, including the climate action plan, the capital improvement plan, and the previous hazard mitigation plan. We participated in countywide multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan meetings, including a plan kickoff, the risk assessment, mitigation strategies, wrap up, and one-on-one meetings with the contracted consultant by the County of Santa Clara. Public had opportunities to participate in multiple community meetings throughout the county. We had surveys pushed through our social media and media systems directly to our block leaders and citizen corps volunteers. And we had a booth at the 2023 Earth and Arbor Day Festival. We continued our coordination with the county. We continued to review drafts of the plans, including specifically the base plan and our Cupertino annex. And finally, it was submitted to Cal OES. Now, some of the differences from 2016 to 2023 is we have different risk assessments. We enhanced our ability to use data. We integrated our planning efforts. So this is the first year that we integrated our climate action plan into the hazard mitigation plan. And the first time we integrated our CIP, the capital improvement plan that the city has adopted, into the hazard mitigation plan. We also incorporated special districts. We invited City of Cupertino, specifically invited Valley Water, Cal Water, San Jose Water Company. We made sure that the fire department and the sheriff's office were involved in the base plan. We involved our special districts. This year, we also followed the emergency management accreditation program standards. So this the only body to accredit emergency management programs in the country. We updated our risk assessment information and our hazard mitigation goals and objectives. This is also the first year that climate change was required by state law to be included as part of our hazard profile. Our public outreach and engagement, we did have multiple public meetings, both virtual and in person across the county. We participated with the County of Santa Clara. They selected the locations based on targeted areas for socially vulnerable populations, and they were accessible for AFN access and functional needs. Locally here, the public comments were received via our city website, via forms and email. The comments were reviewed and evaluated for alignment with our planning priorities. We heard about specific concerns like wildfire and extreme heat from our community members. And then additionally, evacuation routes and warning systems were additional areas of concern. And that feedback was reflected in our selected mitigation actions. So once again, the review and approval process, we drafted the base plan that was sent in, submitted to Cal OES and FEMA by the contracted consultant. And multiple rounds of feedback from Cal OES in particular to adjust and address amendments. Those necessary amendments were made, of course, in consultation with the County of Santa Clara's Office of Emergency Management. Once Cal OES granted conditional approval, it was forwarded on to FEMA, who also granted conditional approval in June 2024. They made sure this conditional approval ensured that our plan adhered to state and federal guidelines and effectively addressed our critical hazards. So once again, once those conditional approvals were received, it requires a formal adoption by our city council to ensure official recognition of the plan and makes us eligible for a subset of grants, including the ones listed below: the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities Grant, Flood Mitigation Assistance, and other state and local grants. Annually, the multi-jurisdictional mitigation plan will be reviewed by our Office of Emergency Management. Will ensure compliance with the Disaster Mitigation Act. There's a comprehensive revision required every 5 years. That'll be done in collaboration with the County of Santa Clara's Office of Emergency Management. And we'll maintain a diverse planning team, including all city departments and our community stakeholders. So the sustainability impact, once again, is that climate change is a significant hazard identified in this plan. I'll note that that is required by law to address, by state law to address the climate change. It aligns with our city's climate action plan and makes our mitigation efforts concurrent with that process. Now, I'll remind you that our recommended action is to recommend to City Council that we adopt the 2023 Santa Clara County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan, including Volume 1 Base Plan and Volume 2, the City of Cupertino Annex.
So do I hear a motion that we recommend for adoption?
I have a question.
Yes,
So what is the fiscal impact, any fiscal impact for this?
There's not an immediate fiscal impact, meaning it's not going to cost us anything beyond staff time to develop and solicit feedback from the community. That's already been done. But it makes us eligible for funding in the future from grants like the hazard mitigation grant, both pre-disaster and post-disaster. So if there was an earthquake today, we had a hazard that caused a significant impact to public infrastructure or private infrastructure, we could get grants, hazard mitigation grants to address those changes. Things like flood mitigation, if there was a storm and coming back and realizing that there's a risk in a certain area for our community, we could get mitigation grants for that post-disaster. Earthquake being another prime one, that catastrophic potentially, depending upon the magnitude. And we could get grants to help us repair
State or
those.
federal level funds?
So they're mostly federal level, passed through the state, yes.
otherwise we'd be subject to have to support that ourselves.
Right, 'cause without this plan,
Right,
we would not be eligible for an application.
right.
So I noticed like in the document, like there was a list, I think at the bottom, which had like a table of, I guess, projects and initiatives that were identified to be funded potentially by those grant funds. So are those projects and initiatives things that, I guess, like, how were those projects and initiatives like decided? Is that from city staff or coming from the council or?
That's exactly right. It's not arbitrary. As we reviewed our climate action plan and our capital improvement plan and our previous hazard mitigation plans and integrated those projects. So they're not new projects.
Okay, right.
Very few of our items are new, with the exception of enhancing certain technological capabilities. But most of them are incorporated from existing approved plans by council.
Got it.
I will make a motion to accept both volumes of the hazard mitigation plan.
Second.
Can we have roll call, vote, please?
So, and for the record, that's Commissioner Evans motioning to accept the recommended action as written, and Vice Chair Rajaram seconding. Commissioner Doss. Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rajaram,
Yes.
and Chair Toda.
Yes. Next, staff and commission reports. Report by the Santa Clara County Fire Department.
Had to reconstruct my notes on my desk. Yeah. So the reports will cover July, August, or you want to do June?
Well, we haven't met. since-
I know we haven't met, so.
It's up to you. I posted for review.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is I'll go with June and then a little bit more in detail with July, August, because June actually had some significant dollar loss. So in terms of something to actually talk about, there'll be an opportunity to get a feel for what has been happening. So with regard to June, the significant events included a structure fire that included a single family residence on Culbertson Drive. and the damage was contained within the building of origin. That is one of the operational goals that we have, was to keep it in the room of origin first and then in the building of origin. So keeping that fire from spreading. And then also, there were about $150,000 worth of damage for both the contents and the structure. And that was estimated by the company officer, the reporting officer. So no injuries or citizen emergency responders were reported as injured, so that would be citizens and or first responders. Second event of note was another structure fire. This was in an outbuilding on Pacifica Drive. There was an arrest made that was connected to this fire. Damage was contained within the building of origin, and there was an estimate of about $50,000 worth of damage that was incurred. And once again, no injuries. So one of the primary goals we have is not just crew safety, but citizen safety. So from that, with the event of a fire and the property loss, the overall public safety component was actually something that I would say was successful. One of the things that I have noticed, and I'll comment on it after going over the 3 months, is the call volume. So I'll say, take a closer look at the incident counts by year. What you're gonna take a look at is that last normal year before COVID, 2019. So you see, by this time, by June, this is year running, you can see the impact of COVID. The call volume, and this is as of June in 2019, is about 1971, so just under 18. And you can see in 2024, over 2,000. So the number of incidents that we are getting, we were on track before COVID to, we were basically seeing a 2 to 3% increase. And this is one of the things that we use for planning, budgeting, resources and other things that we would want to take into account and make sure that the city knew, was essentially the trends that we were seeing. Incident counts by month. This one also tracks a 12-month period. So you can see that overall, there is a spike in the months that usually most months have over 300 incidents for Cupertino. You can see that we've been trying to get, that's one of the things that we use to project out how we're going to end up at the end of the year. The incident response count by hour, I have reported there is an error on this, and that is in the legend orange, and this is something that Tom actually mentioned a while back, so my apologies for not getting that fixed. But the incidents is actually the number or count of incidents and then the number of responses. Responses is actually how many units will come. So depending on what it is, you'll get more than one unit. So if it's a single engine for an EMS call, for example, that's 1 and 1. If you have a rescue response, you may get 2 or 3. Could be an engine, a truck, and a BC. So that's something that you might see on the freeways, and you can see that those track to commute hours, pretty much, or waking hours of the citizens. So you'll see that tapers off in the early morning hours, and overall the trend for us, or actually EMS is the primary response type that we go to. There are a lot of different numbers, but for us here in Cupertino, we're just about 70%. Pretty typical. Service calls, 55 was the count for the month, and that would be all of the units that serve Cupertino specifically. Even though the fire district has 15 fire stations that potentially can come here and help out with any event that we may have. Station 71, 77, and 72. 71 is the primary station on Stevens Creek, and that is our Cupertino station. If we look at the average code 3 response times, anything less than 5 minutes is actually a pretty good response time. So that's for a code 3 response. You can see a count for each unit, and then if you see R's and rescue, that is similar to an engine, but they actually have a little bit more equipment that's similar to a truck. A truck has a different responsibility, and they would help in fire suppression, doing the or exercising the or executing the rescue, or going on top of roofs, opening up, indenting roofs so that fire suppression can actually happen more efficiently. So it's definitely a dance where everybody has a role and they stick to it, and those are identified by unit. And H is the hazmat unit. So that's housed here in Cupertino as well. So it's one of the things that you have a tiller here as well. So there's special lighting and a higher concentration of the stations as well as the expertise that you have and the diversity that you'll be getting here. So once again, the dollar loss was over $200,000 over 5 events. And those 5 events essentially were a combination of structure fires, outbuildings, vehicle fires, and outside of that or other type of vegetation fires. And this is our season for community education. So every time they go out, there were 9 programs and the number of attendees that we have registered. So that was mainly events targeted towards seniors, kids, and other groups, including anybody that may have participated in any kind of event that an engine would have gone out and been requested at an event. So if we can shoot over.
How do we get a 0 response time for our 74?
That was probably canceled because somebody else picked it up.
Oh, okay.
What will happen is because they are out, if the first if it comes in, so that's a Cupertino call. So 74 is actually out of Cupertino. And so they would be coming in, and you can see the map. Let's see, I think there's an actual map of the different stations on the 3rd page. So you'll see, like, for example, if John, just to the south a bit, 79, if 72 is out of service or they're actually on a call, what would happen is the event would come in, it would go to the next in unit. So like if it was near the border and one of those blue dots right there, right by what the cursor is, came in, 79 would get the call. And then what typically happens is before the pre-alert is cleared, 72 would go back in service and say, we'll pick up that call. So they'll be on the air and that's the unit.
Okay.
But it does register as an event because they were dispatched.
True.
And they probably never actually went into a response mode. If they did, and then they closed it and switched it back. So it's kind of a data logistic thing.
Okay.
But good question. Thanks. Right. Now, the July report, this one has a little bit more detail and this, there was just over $1 million worth of dollar loss. This included a structure fire in a fourplex on Westland Way. The damage, once again, was contained to the unit of origin. I read the notes on this one. It was actually in the attic. So it would have actually affected all 4 units potentially for a common attic, and that's why the dollar loss on this one is so high. They would effectively take those 4. I don't know what the displacement was on this particular event, but it's likely that $1 million worth of damage would have been some kind of structural damage to the roof, which makes sense. Roofs and foundations are essentially the most expensive part, which would drive up the dollar loss numbers for us. And then on to the no injuries for citizens and the first responder.
Do we know, or do we know like I guess the cause of that? Is it?
According to that one, I believe it was an electrical. I could double check. Usually so the duty investigator will get sent out. They'll look at the area of origin. So they'll look at what room or area had the most charred. And for this one, since I believe it was in the attic, actually double. But it looked like this had light smoke showing. They went in, they realized it wasn't interior living spaces. They had smoke in the attic, and then they confirmed it was them. At that point, those are usually, and there was no reports of work that were listed in the incident report with Harry. So this was most likely going to be, it's a quick peek anyway, because we did have one that was related to cooking, and it had one 62. So occasionally attic fires will be over the kitchen. When the food, if there's a fire or a flash from a grease fire or something like that, it'll get into the food and there'll be a gap in the pipe. And that exhaust will actually allow ignition into the insulation. So if there's like a blown in insulation or that cellulose, that'll start to punk around and basically work its way and then it'll become an attic fire. I did actually capture that one in my notes, and they're on my desk, so I'll double check and confirm it. So I'm thinking that the attic fire may be the one that came in from the kitchen. But it didn't actually ignite in the kitchen or interior spaces. All right, so July. With July, as we got further into the year, we're gonna see the number of events that we have for the total call volume that we expect to end up with at the end of the year. And we've been predicting that we're gonna get back to where we were pre-COVID numbers. And this one actually does track out to say that our call volume is likely going to end up where we were in 2019. So I think we're our new normal and back on track. I think we've actually achieved it, and then we'll see with the next month or August numbers. It looks like a little bit. It looks like confirmation. Where we definitely exceed what we had in 2019. And you can see how it was trending up. And then finally, the response time numbers that we have, once again, EMS, 60%, 60+% on range, and then our response times, or average response times for 71, 77, 72, still remain on that 5-minute mark. 3 incidents that basically included the fourplex. There was an outside vegetation fire and a vehicle fire. So vehicle fire, I think, was around $10,000. Yes, and then you can see that our number of events we're getting at that 2,400 level for the number of incidents at the end of July. And we can move on to August. So in August, there was a $25,000 loss that was estimated. So there was a vegetation fire. In the incident narrative, I'm not actually certain why they called for the value, but it was essentially reported out as a structure fire that turned into a fire behind a home. So it was in an open space in a lot. And then basically this was contained within a 2-acre area. And once again, it had $10,000 worth of loss was connected to it. It may have been fence or other types of, like, say, just infrastructure. And that adds up pretty quickly. And the second would have been vehicle fire. This vehicle fire was one that was actually found by an engine company that was on its way to the training center. So they just happened to see some smoke and they saw the vehicle and they called for actually 71 to back them up. And we were able to put out the fire in the engine compartment. So that was about estimated to be a $15,000 loss. And so I will say that taking a look at the numbers, the December 2023 numbers, we were at about 3,800 incidents. I actually looked at a different report to pull that, just to give you some context into kind of where we were in 2018. If you looked at December, the number was 3,900. So there was an increase that we've been seeing over the last few months, and we're getting somewhere between 340 and 380 incidents average, or that range rather, for the next few months. And then it drops a little bit in December, but if we're tracking to that, we're looking at probably projecting out another 1,200 calls. Which should, from the 2,700 that you see there, should put us just over that amount. So I expect this year for us on the data side to definitely go right back to that chunk, and then we would probably be tracking to that 3% increase, which taking into account all of the different things that are happening in Cupertino. There's a lot of construction, there's a lot of other things. So I think at this point to start paying attention to just infrastructure, streets, uh, traffic, things like that. Back to normal. And then. And the average response times, the incident responses by hour or count by hour. And the distribution of the average or the percentage for EMS now 68, just under 70%. All very typical for us. And I will say this though, if I take a look, I've been the liaison. We had a pretty busy summer. There were more structure fires in the last 4 months, 5 months. There were at least, I know we had at least one arrest, and we concluded one arson with a conviction. So things have gotten things have gotten busy. And I think that for us, it's definitely been it's been a good time as far as knowing that our resources and the distribution, I mean, our response times have been keeping up, but at this point, like I said, we're really needing to make sure that we stay on top of calls, the incidents. Our crews are actually in the summer with the wildfires and everything else. There's a lot of effort to make sure that the stations are properly staffed, they're filled. And we had two second alarm fires last Friday, and they were in Saratoga, one on top of the others. We were really, really stressed to the point where we were moving companies up, making sure the coverage, trying to make sure we were very proactive about releasing units, getting so that we had. So it's really more a function of how busy we had become and the types of incidents that we're going to now. So with that, sprinkler systems in homes, things like that, those things are actually very important. Both of the structures that we went to in Saratoga on Friday were under construction. So in some phase of under construction that did not have a sprinkler system active. So just public safety messages, anything for the public safety forum coming up, these types of things are actually very important to make sure people were just aware of how effective smoke alarms, all the other devices that are intended to help people basically be alerted very early and act early are always relative. So with that, I will conclude what I have to talk about. And if there's any questions, I'm very happy to answer those.
Yeah, just one question. We talked about ride-alongs in the past, and it sounded like those were coming back in the future. Just wanted to follow up and see if that's available.
Yeah, we went through that process of trying to open them up. I think that for you folks on the commission, I probably could try to make sure that we arrange something. There's still a little bit with the spikes of the number. Like we actually have a lot of our members affected by COVID over the last 2 months. Matter of fact, I got it myself. So they've been very cautious about that. But I think that I probably, if you'd like, I could definitely see if we can, at what point we'll be able to entertain a ride along. Because I think having you understand what we do and how we do it would be great. And the fact is that it would be awesome for our crews to know who you are. So I can definitely see if I can work through our medical director to see if we can get some kind of situation set up for you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
That affected us, yeah.
Found the sheriff's ride-along super valuable, so maybe we wait a couple months when things slow down, if that's better, but I think it would be very educational.
Yeah, it would be.
Welcome the opportunity. Yeah, okay.
I'll before I leave tonight, I'll send a text out to see if I can start the conversation, initiate a request to.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah.
So make a request to wait.
Yeah, well, we'll work out the process so it's possible, and then we'll let you know when it's possible, and then I'll reach out to all of you. And then at that point, you can tell me if you're interested and at what sort of timeline. We'll take some scheduling. So it's not gonna be the next day or, the same day. It might be, a week or two out at the minimum. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Any other questions or do I hear a motion to receive the report by the Santa Clara County? Santa Fire Department?
Yes, motion to receive the report by the Santa Clara County Fire District.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call.
And for the record, that Commissioner Evans motioning to receive the report by the Santa Clara County Fire Department and Commissioner Doss seconded. On a roll call vote, Commissioner Doss. Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rusher,
Yes.
and Chair Tobin.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So, item 6, report by the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department.
All right, good evening. You got we're gonna have all 3 months, all in one spreadsheet, so we don't have to bounce around, so, That's around my fire.
Zing.
We talked about this before, but I think last time we had some priority one calls that were exceeding our target time. And then we addressed those and I kind of pointed out that sometimes these calls come in and missing persons and then they're changed to at risk because it's the juvenile, even though the kid's been running away for like a week or so. It still counts as a priority one. So sometimes, we missed our target time, but overall, what we try to do is try to average it out throughout the year. And as you can see, with 26 priority one calls, we're about a little over 5 minutes so far, so on August. With priority two calls, even almost under 500 calls in August, over 534 in July, and 521 in June. We're doing fairly well by keeping that number right about 6 minutes. When our target time is 9, and the same for priority 3, which was 10 minutes. We're about 5, 6, and 8 over the last 3 months. So we're doing pretty good with our priority 3, 2, and we're still bringing that number down also. This is just a raw number data of our priority responses. We can go down to the next slide, please. This kind of gives us a breakdown of the crimes that have been reported and documented within the city. You can see we had a little surge of robberies in June, July, and August. And I've been looking those up, at least for August, 5 that occurred were all retail theft that turned a little bit violent. So when people were trying to fight with loss prevention or something like that, it gets now classified as a robbery. So surprisingly enough, actually, like the last 4 were actually TJ Maxx in August that were classified as robberies, and these are all essentially retail crimes that do turn a little bit violent. So the next line below, you can see our residential burglaries. They did go down a little bit. You can see we did have 9 in August. We are taking effective methods to try to reduce that number. We do have some burglary suppression deputies during peak times out there, and we also are utilizing our high impact team as well too to help us out. One of the numbers that I do want to point out is the commercial burglary, as you can see there. And as you know, maybe we did have a high impact team that was funded to the state, where we have plainclothes deputies that are specifically targeting retail crime. And I think the word has gotten around that Cupertino is probably not the best place to do it, because we ended with 109 last year. We're at 58 right now. Numbers are doing well. So vehicle burglaries, those numbers are going up as well too. We see some effect of people breaking into cars. We have made some arrests. Interesting enough, it's mostly juveniles breaking into cars, just taking stuff from vehicles. And so those are just the numbers there to where we're at right now. The number I did want to point out a little bit, if you keep going down just a little bit, is the one that hasn't really changed a lot, is our identity theft forgery fraud. It's still looking like it's pretty much the same. So we need to more public awareness, because the crooks are taking new methods again to commit identity theft, forgery, and fraud. I know our detectives went out today on a serious fraud case, and they were setting up a perimeter and getting an arrest warrant on a suspect who has hit a lot of people for a serious amount of cash. So those are the crimes right now that we have in place right now. Go down a little bit. Statistics regarding the way we issue citations. You can see that we are at 93 moving violations, two speeding, 44 for the year on speeding. Other citations are, we're about 657. DUIs are about 19 arrests for the year so far. Accidents 18 with injury, about 80 with property damage, and luckily we only had one in June with a DUI accident. So we're at 4 so far. These is kind of broken down to our traffic units. So the deputies on motorcycles, that's their primary thing, is to go out and enforce traffic laws. So their numbers are a little bit higher because they're always out there giving more tickets. We have done some sting operations for pedestrian walkways that have been very successful, hopefully curbing behavior to alert people to slow down and yield the right of way to pedestrians. So that's where we're at with everything on our traffic units and their statistics. And I think the last one is just combined, so it's just the raw number of both those two tables combined totals. So a lot of stuff, a lot of citations, and by our deputies and our traffic units. And this kind of breaks down the patrol accidents. So you have June, July, and August, where kind of breaks it down by injury, property damage, bike pedestrian, hit and run, property damage, hit and run, no details, DUI injury. So that kind of breaks it down right there for our numbers for accidents, and we're busy. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of interesting cases. The Apple event happened on Monday. We did have about 13 deputies present, trying to make sure that everything went off without a hitch. We did have some protesters. We've had a couple of protesters on Mary Avenue on Saturday, the day before. We had some on Sunday here at Memorial Park. Pretty much without incident. They did block a roadway for a little while, but one of our sergeants was very trying to explain to them that they didn't move the vehicles and they get towed, and eventually they did move it. So just very busy, and hopefully we have been working some cases that are a little bit confidential, but next time I might be able to tell you guys a little bit more information. Our hit team is out working a lot of interesting cases right now. So that's all I have. Open to questions if you guys have any questions regarding my report.
You mentioned something about peak hours for residential burglary. Is that like middle of the day when people aren't home, or middle of the night, or when is that?
We're noticing that it's late afternoon. We believe that the statistics are kind of skewing more towards Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday during the late portion of the week. And so we are utilizing deputies during that time to just be extra out there. If they can have an unmarked car, that's great, but marked cars are just as fine because they're deterrent as well. And their primary purpose is to respond to residential burglary alarms and try to deter any burglaries. We have been doing a lot of public awareness. There seems to be a same kind of motive right now with residential burglaries. People are breaking through the rear sliding glass door. They're specifically targeting the master bedroom, safes, high-end jewelry, cash, anything that they can take from the master bedroom, and they're out. And they're breaking the glass door so that they don't trigger any alarm. So we are pushing a lot of, please make sure you install shatter alarms, especially if you have one place, it's your rear sliding glass door. We have also pushed a lot of film that you can install on your windows to make it shatter resistant, so that if someone tries to break it, it's just not going to fall apart. And again, activating your alarm when you leave, even if it's just to go to the grocery store. And so we are pushing that information out. So we're trying to get these to stop happening. But, we're not the only ones. These are happening, unfortunately, all throughout the area. We're not the only ones being targeted for these kind of crimes. So.
Do you see that burglary happens even if there is a camera in the home? Do you see that kind of pattern?
Yes, there have been at least 2 instances that we know in Los Altos Hills, and none in Saratoga yet that we know of, where people are using Wi-Fi jammers. Los Gatos PD had a couple of people using Wi-Fi jammers. It's essentially just a jammer for Wi-Fi cameras. So if you have a Ring camera, for example, it's not going to feed directly to your phone. It'll still record everything, but you won't notice the video until after the Wi-Fi jammer has stopped. So we have noticed that a couple times where people get, oh, there's somebody at my front door, and they call us and they say, we go there and it was 15-20 minutes ago, unfortunately, and the Wi-Fi was probably jammed. Los Gatos Police Department did get in pursuit with a couple of suspects, and they did locate a Wi-Fi jammer in one of the vehicles. So we are seeing that cameras are really, they're Wi-Fi cameras. Right now, they are trying to circumvent those with some other tools, so.
For regarding the identity theft stuff, I know like a lot of my like folks that I know, Cupertino and otherwise, like have been getting like letters from like AT&T and like various other companies saying like we've been breached and like all your blah 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 information is exposed. So are these identity theft crimes like I guess like cyber in nature, or is it like someone left their credit cards?
It's a mismatch of different kinds of stuff. We do get some of those where people look at their credit report, see there's a credit card that got opened up. The majority is mail theft. People are stealing mail and then committing identity theft that way. People use skimmers still. Right now, it's not necessarily too much of a skimmer. They actually put things over the card readers.
Right.
There's that way of obtaining your information. And stealing checks, washing them, and then recashing them or depositing them somehow, or cashing them at check cash places. We've seen that as well too. So it's a mishmash of, we call identity theft, forgery, fraud, any personal identifying information. That's all classified in the same category. But it's really a gambit of just a bunch of different kinds of personal identifying information, including bank account numbers, routing numbers, et cetera. So.
Is there like maybe internally, is there like a separate reporting mechanism for like things that happen online or something? Or is it all?
Sometimes we don't know the way that the breach has been made. You know, I know you get those letters from Chase or whatever company, but and you don't see anything for several months. A lot of times identity theft doesn't occur right away. They'll get that information, they'll hold on to it, kind of let you put at ease, and then they'll use it. By that time, the victim may have forgotten that he got that letter from some data breach. So they may not could relate to us of how that information was stolen. So unfortunately, we just don't, I'm sure we could review the reports if the victim knew how his information got breached, but oftentimes they don't know how they got collected. So. Any questions?
Sorry, before we move on, I just wanted to quickly share that we have in partnership with the sheriff's office and using the data that are presented to you every month. We have put together this dynamic crime dashboard that we actually load data from all the way back to 2012. And all the same categories of crime and things that you see in these reports are documented here. And you can see over time that we are generally speaking to a full year 2023, seeing a decrease in overall crime. Now, that's mostly due to the great work that our sheriff's office is doing, but also a part of our work with our neighborhood watch and building a community, our blocking programs and citizen court to build a sense of community here in Cupertino. But I do still encourage you, every time you talk to your friends, neighbors, make sure that when crimes are committed, you report it to 911 and have our sheriff's office come out and investigate. Not to social media, not to next door, but to 911 or to the sheriff's office directly. And Vice Chair, you talked about fraud and identity theft. I wanted to bring up the Federal Trade Commission has a report fraud website. It's not an investigatory tool, but it's a matter of linking across the nation instances that have occurred. So I recommend reporting it to the FTC as well. That dashboard that you saw is accessible on our website, cupertino.org, to the sheriff's office page on our website, and there's a crime dashboard page for that.
So it's not part of that overall big dashboard you have with the web?
No, not part of our current incident
Okay.
dashboard. It's part of our, I can show you the pathway to it. So if you were to go to the sheriff's office, it's under the sheriff's office on crime dashboard. And this is also a good opportunity to note that on the sheriff's office page, we highlighted their flyer for tips to avoid identity theft. This is again produced by the sheriff's office to combat this exact crime that Captain is mentioning as being one of our more common crimes in Cupertino. So it's again on the sheriff's office page, the Cupertino crime dashboard up on the top left here.
With that?
And. Insurance. Do I hear a motion to receive the report by the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, motion to receive a report from the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office.
Second.
Please.
Roll call vote. For the record, that's Commissioner Evans motioning to receive a report from the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office, seconded by Vice Chair Rajaram. And the roll call vote, Commissioner Evans, or excuse me, Commissioner Doss?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rajaram?
Yes.
And Chair Toda?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next is item 7, report by the City of Cupertino Office of Emergency Management.
All right, so,
Okay, sure. Can I step out? Pam's asking if I can.
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
I'll keep this relatively short. You've heard enough from me today, as I suppose as usual. But I wanted to give a quick update on our REACH program. So if you remember, our Raising Emergency Awareness about Community Hazards program is how we push public safety information, especially about hazardous conditions, to the community through our volunteer network. That is inclusive of our Cupertino Citizen Corps and our block leader program and neighborhood watch programs. Generally speaking, it is activated most often for inclement weather, whether it be from rain and wind and cold to heat that we experience during the summer. It's just happens to be our most common. We can use it. We will use this program for any hazard, including earthquakes, lightning storms, any other potential hazard that we put in place. That certainly we either anticipate or actively experiencing. The program goals are to formalize the expectation of information sharing by volunteers in an emergency, to build a more connected community, to create pathways for information sharing between the city and the individuals and our individual households. Then finally, to better prepare the community to respond to threats and mitigate risks associated with, among other things, extreme weather. So most recently during June, the week of June 30, the National Weather Service issued an advisory for major heat risk in Cupertino. 102 volunteers across the block leader, citizen corps, and neighborhood watch programs responded to the initiation of a REACH emergency threat. They reported they passed the message to an estimated 13,831 other Cupertino residents and neighbors. Across for the last year, our volunteers have reported they translated messages into Chinese, both simplified and traditional, Hindi and German. So these are translations made on our behalf to the community by culturally associated residents. So this is an example of a representation of the amplification of our power. It's not just the city putting it on social media or Nextdoor or putting it into an email newsletter that only a handful of people registered for. But we push it and then it's amplified by our incredible volunteers. So from 102 people, we've estimated 13,000 person reach. And with that, it's a simplified update because you heard a lot from me today. So I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer.
Hearing no questions, can I have a motion to receive a report by the City of Cupertino Office of Emergency Management?
Yeah, there is a motion to accept this report by Jill.
Second, please.
Seconded.
Can I have roll call too?
Absolutely. And for the record, that's Commissioner Doss motioning to receive the report from the City of Cupertino Office of Emergency Management. And that's seconded by Commissioner Evans. Roll call vote, Commissioner Doss. Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roger,
Yes.
and Chair Tucker.
That's
Motion passes unanimously.
last week, before we go to future items, commissioner reports. Do any of the commissioners have reports you'd like to share? I attended the mayor's commissioner meeting and we presented a couple of topics to update them. One, that we were delaying the ALR recommendation. Somebody laughing.
Yeah.
So we were delaying the ALR recommendation due to happening to cancel the meeting in July. And then that the public safety forum date was tentatively set for October.
Dashboard.
Yeah, the dashboard. We shared that the dashboard. It's in October, we will be doing a public safety mission presentation to the city council.
So the 15th.
Yes, so we'll probably need to prepare.
Okay. You have a mayor's meeting next week.
Mayor's meeting next week with the city. And so now that we got the recommendation for the ALR, license, we're going to do that as well as the mitigation report. Interesting about that mitigation report, we're the 5th largest city in Santa Clara.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I like to think of us as the largest, but you know.
It's amazing to see how much San Jose has shrank though. They were over 1 million people at one time, so. Anyway, I have nothing further to add. First, anybody at all?
Yeah, I guess just like following up on the identity theft stuff and especially like the online mode of that. Like, I know I received letters like that and like some of my neighbors received letters like that and people I know in Cupertino received letters like that. And there's almost like a sense of like just throwing your hands up in the air that I get from them. Like, okay, like at this point, it's all out there. Like, I guess now it's kind of transitioned into like what do you kind of do when you are presented with this information? I guess maybe, like the report fraud thing, I think is like super cool. Like, I'll definitely be sharing it with all of them, but I wonder if we have any more like centralized resources for like cyber.
What we could do is fraud at this level, at Cupertino level, you mean?
Yeah.
It's a good question. That could be a item that we can potentially discuss for a future agenda item. I'll note just shortly that personally, I've frozen my credit across the board on all credit bureaus. That's free to do.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, without paying someone else to do it for you, you have to do it one by one. And it's not tedious. It's not difficult, it's just tedious.
Yeah.
I recommend that, but we could look at potential identity theft presentations in the future. There would be some time from now because of the public safety forum and other things coming up, but.
That would be a good item. You know, maybe to say, here's the kinds of local threats we're seeing now. Just so people are aware that maybe they're not the only one.
Right.
And it may be a part of a large.
It's really broad, but I mean, there are things you can do everything you can, and you can still be the victim of any theft. All it takes is for somebody who wants to, for example, work illegally and they'll just type a number on a fake social security card. And they'll go to work with that, but not pay taxes. And after a couple of years, the IRS is gonna send you a bill that, hey, you have unstated income that you never claimed taxes on. We get that every now and then. It's just pure random luck that your social security number was posted on there, and the IRS will let you, have somebody appointed, but it'll take a couple of years of not paying taxes before they'll come after the actual opening. Even after you froze your accounts and everything else, I mean, it's still another method. There's a lot of ways of these crimes that are occurring, so. And they're all not necessarily nefarious. Somebody just using your number to try to work is not a nefarious way. However, if they don't pay their taxes, it affects the owner of that social security number, so.
And I also encourage you to watch the cybersecurity awareness forum that we had.
That was a great tool.
September 2023.
Yeah.
We had a speaker from Palo Alto Networks, a couple speakers from Palo Alto Networks, our own infrastructure manager, the city of Cupertino, and also a ADA, Assistant District Attorney.
From Santa Clara was excellent.
Yeah, she's incredible, talking about pig butchering and what that means and how they're effectively trying to get you from nose to tail. I'm not sure which direction it goes, but they're trying to get every cent out of you. So I recommend taking a look at that.
Any other things? I guess we need to turn off and call for adjournment.
Sheriff, you're calling